they'll be left out. And many Americans don't like digital only. Olson believes we won't see a 100% digital future in his lifetime, largely for this reason.
In the U.S., we've been fighting it. Businesses were saying, hey, we're going to go cashless. And the city governments and the local governments got involved and said, no, you can't do that. Until we get to the point to where, as a society, we are 100% on board for going 100% digital, I don't see it happening.
Yum Brands hasn't specified a time frame for its all-digital goal. Turner believes the government is likely to step in if it gets too close. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
And now for your sports news.
And identified a risk of a crash and braked, reducing its speed, but couldn't avoid the collision. At that intersection, visibility is blocked by buildings, and it's not possible to see objects around a corner until they are very close to the intersection, Dietrich's statement said. The crew's autonomous vehicle detected the siren as soon as it was distinguishable from background noise, he wrote. Cruise vehicles have driven more than 3 million autonomous miles in the city and interacted with emergency vehicles more than 168,000 times in the first 7 months of this year alone, according to the statement. The company plans to work with authorities to reduce the likelihood of crashes happening again.
Pull the plug.
National Weather Service meteorologist Richard Thompson tells us the last time a tropical storm hit SoCal.
This is historic. This is the first landfalling tropical storm in Southern California since September 25th, 1939. So it's been a few decades since this actually last occurred. So definitely a very rare occurrence.
Thompson says as the storm continues to move northward, it continues to weaken to a point where it's a post-tropical depression.
Hillary formed, it became a strong Category 4 hurricane. Then as it continued moving north, over the coast waters there, it gradually weakened. By the time it came onshore at the Mexican border, it was a tropical storm, which means like wind gusts between 39 and 74 miles per hour.
The storm barreled through the city, flooding streets, triggering mudslides, and leaving thousands without power. The rain unleashed record-breaking downpours overnight, which dumped more than half the average annual rain on some desert and mountain areas. The Los Angeles Fire Department responded to more than 1,800 storm-related calls for service.
Yes, there was a lot of, it was flooded like crazy, up to the sidewalk and stuff, we had a sandbag part of our house, in front of our house and stuff like that.
Well, we did receive, you look at the rainfall totals across Southern California, coastal areas received upwards of 4 to 5 inches. In the mountains and deserts, you had upwards of some areas in excess of 10 inches of rainfall. So that much rain.
Parental rights. It's a very, very dangerous bill. So that's AB 665. And another horrible bill authored by Senator Scott Wiener is Assembly Bill 957. He and Assemblywoman Lori Wilson wrote that bill, and that bill, again, towards breaking up families, says if there are two parents who are separating and are fighting over custody, the parent that is affirming the child's gender identity will be the favored parent, and that will actually make law that affirming a child's self-selected gender identity with no age limit. So any child, in fact, Lori Wilson used the example of a 7-year-old. If your 7-year-old comes home, you must affirm their gender, because affirming a child's self-selected gender identity is in line with their health, safety, and welfare. If both parents do not affirm their child's gender identity, then they will both be found to be jeopardizing or acting contrary to that child's health, safety, and welfare, and both will risk losing custody.
Then there's Assembly Bill 1078, which Pearson says would take local control away from school boards.
It says school boards can do whatever they want. However, if you do whatever you want, then and it doesn't align with what the state is requesting that you do, you could be defunded, you could be fined, you will be publicly doxxed. Board members who object to the state.
California's really fucked up.
They always do recommendations. The state recommended.
It really is.
And we've we've already seen that happening. We've already seen Tony Thurmond come down to local school boards. We've seen Rob Bonta, Gavin Newsom open up an investigation of the Temecula Valley Unified School District. They were, when they were threatening to not adopt Gavin Newsom's and his wife's curriculum, they opened up an investigation. They threatened to fine them $1.5 million, and the school district backpedaled and are now working with the state to find a compromise about the curricula. Then we have Senator Portantino's bill, SB 596.
That makes me sick.
Drafted in
within 3 days if their child identifies as transgender, is involved in violence, or shares thoughts of self-harm. Under the policy, parents would also be notified if their child requests to use names, pronouns, athletic programs, bathrooms, or locker rooms that don't, quote, align with the student's biological sex or gender. Currently, the California Department of Education requires school districts to keep private such changes relating to students' gender status from parents or guardians. The 7-member board and a crowd of parents, teachers, and community members debated whether it was the parents' right to be notified or if the policy would put some students' safety in danger. A final vote on the policy is set for September 7th.
With the prosecuting attorney on how the lawsuit came about. The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, representing the 6 plaintiffs, alleged that the California's new Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility, or DEIA rules, force professors to teach the government's politicized viewpoints that they don't share, and that violates their First Amendment rights. I spoke to the plaintiff attorney, Daniel Ortner. Thanks for joining us. So, Daniel, are these state DEI rules mandatory? Do they carry any penalties if professors don't abide by them?
No, yeah, this is mandatory. It's required for new hires have to have these competencies. They're regularly evaluated for their adherence to these DEI requirements. Whether they're teaching and preaching against anti-racism and intersectionality to their students, whether they are endorsing these concepts, embracing race consciousness, embracing equity mindset, they're told they have to do these things. They're also told what they cannot teach. For instance, model principles the district put out warns professors against weaponizing academic freedom. It says, warns them against that, and it says if it warns them against inflicting curricular trauma on their students.
My
which is
Lord.
An absurd concept. What does that mean to inflict curricular trauma on a student? Speech is not trauma. Ideas are not trauma. Students are adults. They should be expected to handle different ideas.
I noticed that 2 of the plaintiffs, they're not political science teachers, nor social science or history. They're actually chemistry teachers. How are they affected by the state's policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion?
Yeah, so they're also being told that they have to introduce DEIA concepts into their classroom, even though they teach chemistry. So it's wildly inappropriate. The chemistry classroom and the chemistry laboratory are not places to preach about anti-racism and intersectionality, and so they're being forced to take away from their students' education by introducing these concepts that have no place in the classroom and are irrelevant and damaging to their students.